Thank you very much. It's a real pleasure and honour to be here, and I want to say thank you very much to Cambridge and Cambridge Africa for inviting me and giving me this opportunity. I'm going to talk about this programme, which is a collaboration between Makerere University and the Uganda Virus Research Institute, the London School of Hygiene and Tropical Medicine, who are my employers, and the University of Cambridge. With apologies to my colleagues from London here today, I'm not going to say much about the major and important contribution that the school makes, because this is Cambridge Africa Day. So the question that was posed for this session is, how can Cambridge Africa support African partners? And I'm going to take the liberty of adjusting it a little bit to how can Cambridge and African scientists support each other. And I think this is very much in the theme of actually what's been emerging as we've been listening to the talks today. And this program is to do with health research, and Dan will be very happy to know that I'm going to talk about why and what and how, although in a different order, because I thought I would talk about why first, and then a little bit about what we are trying to do, and then how we might be going to do it with examples from the MUII program. So I'm sure I'm addressing the converted really in talking about why we might want to work together between Cambridge and Africa. But I just thought maybe we can, remind ourselves of this a bit, because Africa is really a wonderful, diverse and exciting continent, and it's a great privilege to have the opportunity to live and work there in many different ways. And it's also not very far away. To go from Cambridge or London to Uganda, it only takes 8 hours and maybe 700 or 800 pounds. And you can probably take just as long to get to Dundee or somewhere like that. So it's really just next door in a way. And yet it's very different in many ways. And because of the major differences in the environment and the way that people live, there are still huge challenges in Africa with diseases like HIV, tuberculosis, malaria, the neglected tropical infectious diseases. And in fact, for virtually none of these that I've just mentioned is there a really effective vaccine, for example. Many of them need improved diagnostic tests. Many of them need improved interventions. So there's a lot of work to be done in translational medical research. And we really, as we've all very much realized over the last few years, we cannot really regard these as a problem that belongs to another place and another people. These problems are shared by all of us. And of course, the Ebola outbreak was the prime example of this. And this is a picture of Dr. Matthew Lukwia, who was a very bright young Ugandan physician who worked at Lachor Hospital in Gulu, and he recognized the Ebola outbreak in Uganda in 2000, and he lost his life in leading the work in that outbreak. And I've often thought over the last year or two that if Ugandan or African scientists had the capacity to develop a vaccine for Ebola, they would have done so before, and that would have prevented the problems that we've been facing in the last couple of years. So Africa is also changing very rapidly. This is the extreme example because it's Cape Town, but many other African cities are beginning to look like this. So there are, from the point of view of infection and immunity, there are very interesting opportunities at the moment to understand how changing lifestyles and changing exposure to infections influences health in a way that you can no longer study it in places like Cambridge, because the transition here has already happened. And Africa, of course, is very interesting for genetics. And earlier this week, I was privileged to be at a very interesting seminar at King's College, where we learnt about the use of mitochondrial genetic studies to understand the migration of humans out of Africa. And this emphasized that the African modern human population is about twice as old as any of the rest of the human population of the world, which all arose from a single migration. So very interesting things to learn about in African genetics. So Africa is also full of wonderful, bright, energetic people, and some of them actually look like this. And so I hope I've sort of emphasized that there are very interesting and exciting opportunities in Africa which are not available in Cambridge. As David emphasized this morning, the only sustainable and appropriate way to address these challenges and opportunities is to have support for African scientists to be able to do that. But the challenges are that there is, as again was mentioned this morning, a lack of academic critical mass in spite of the presence of excellent scientists. There are very few to manage the work that needs to be done. A lack of infrastructure, skills, and funding. So how have we tried to address this with the MUII program, with the organizations that I talked about earlier, Makerere and UVRI with LSHTM and Cambridge. And we're aiming to build a center of excellence for infection immunity research and training. And to start with, to talk about the approach to the infrastructure issue, we started by thinking about immunology. So at the Virus Research Institute, we had considerable capacity for immunology, but at the College of Health Sciences at Makerere, there was almost nothing in 2008 when we started. But we were given this room, which we developed into an immunology laboratory, and we brought in Steve Coase. We were able to employ proper immunologists to come and work with us, and later on Bernard Bagaya, a young Ugandan scientist, came back from his PhD in the States. And we encouraged journal clubs and research in progress sessions and an immunology course, and later the department took the initiative to develop a master's course, and now a department of immunology and molecular biology is being developed as a result of the tremendous enthusiasm which developed for this. And Cambridge has been a great help in this, and here's David talking to some students on the immunology in the tropics course. And just to show you how much this sort of input is appreciated, this is some of the feedback. The quality time we spent interacting with world-class immunologists through dedicated revision time and social events was priceless. The many hours spent with each of us, listening to them and talking with them about our goals and plans for the future, were incredibly rewarding. And somebody else, this has not left me the same. So fantastically appreciated the effort of coming and participating and interacting with the young African scientists. So more recently, we've started to work on bioinformatics as well. As Dan said, there's a great desire and need to be able to use the kind of data that's emerging from studies in Africa for young African scientists to be able to do this. And actually, some of the molecular biologists and mathematicians from our team have really been driving this themselves. And again, Cambridge has already made a significant contribution through collaboration between Manj Sandhu from Cambridge and the Sanger Centre with Pontiano Kalebu, the director of the MRC unit at UVRI, to set up a medical informatics centre which will improve the infrastructure for data analysis in Uganda. So with that sort of infrastructural and support network developing, we've also been focusing on training and attracting bright young Africans into research careers and trying to help support best ones into research leadership positions. So we've had some open days with a couple of thousand school children each, and these have actually also led to sort of people coming and joining our internship programs. And one of the things that Cambridge has also done is to send us a few interns every now and then. This is one of them. And this is great because it sort of enriches the academic atmosphere in our labs. And also at a more senior level, Lucy Thorne from Ian Goodfellow's lab came and worked with Angela in our lab on studies on noroviruses. And this was really fun, I think, for both of them. And as well as being exciting for the African junior scientists, it can also have important implications for from the people from Cambridge. This is another Cambridge undergraduate who got inspired by the 1B parasitology course and did an internship in the Maltino Institute, and then an elective with Brian Greenwood in the MRC in the Gambia, and is now giving this talk. So you never know what it may lead to. So moving on to the master's level, we've been trying to help the best young graduates get straight into research training with a fast-track master's course. But also Cambridge has helped here. This was a bright a maths intern who has just recently finished the MPhil in computational biology here with a Commonwealth Fellowship, and we'd be very pleased if Cambridge can continue to support this level of training in the sort of field of bioinformatics. And he's come back to work with some projects in Uganda. And then Cambridge has also been very supportive in mentorship and co-supervision, as Dan described for Thrive. And these are two of our first two batch of PhD graduates who were co-supervised in Cambridge. And what they really, what Cambridge mentors and co-supervisors can really contribute here is helping to develop the research ideas and proposals, providing opportunities to learn new skills, and then access to literature and help with writing and with learning how to get your papers published. And this was something that Ashley worked on very intensively with Annette, and they were able to publish her work in PNAS. And then just being in an environment where there is a high level of critical mass, and to see what excellence is, I think, is a tremendous opportunity. And then such graduates need continuing support, and the sort of things that can be very helpful are to maintain continued research collaboration and to introduce people to the wider scientific community so that they have more opportunities to move around and collaborate and learn new things. So that all sounds like quite a lot of work for the Cambridge person, I must admit, to time and investment of energy and so on. So what do you, and I've been saying it's a two-way thing. So what is the advantages for a Cambridge mentor? So I'd like to argue that if you think about it, and certainly my experience is that a lot of your best work comes out of the work that your PhD students and your postdocs do. So these are just a few of the things that have come out of this. So John Chitayimba worked with Roberto Sainz from the computational biology in Cambridge, and one of the things that he showed was that using mathematical modeling was that if you're an HIV positive person taking antiretroviral therapy, there's no drug window when you could take time off from your treatment that's short enough to be safe. So there were still ongoing studies looking at can people take the weekend off from taking their drugs or a month off from taking their drugs. But this model suggests that actually it's really a mistake to even try. And then Damali Nakanjako is also interested in improving treatment and care for people with HIV. And she had observed that immune activation was associated with poor immune recovery in people on treatment. So although their viral load would be suppressed, their T-cell recovery was poor. And she conducted a study suggesting that taking a statin, the sort of drug that people take to lower cholesterol and so on, may be helpful to reduce the inflammation. And she's developing new work now to pursue that for major clinical endpoints. Harriet Makerere worked with me. She looked at the effect of hookworm infections in pregnancy, and she showed that hookworm infection in pregnancy protects from infantile eczema, and that it even protects from risk factors like family history or having IgE to allergens, and that treating maternal hookworm results in an increase in eczema in children. So this was the first intervention study that showed that, that an intervention in pregnancy alters the risk of allergic disease outcomes in children. And then Robert, who has worked with both me and with David Dunn, showed that, that schistosomiasis is associated with reduced responses to measles booster immunizations in preschool children. And then Annette, along with Ashley, showed that African women are at higher risk of preeclampsia, which is a major cause of maternal mortality, and that the genes associated with preeclampsia differ between African and European women, and this has major implications for understanding the biology of this very important condition. So as we move into trying to be a center of excellence rather than a training program, we are keen to support scientists at a senior level as well as the trainees. And there are lots of ways in which we're thinking about doing it. But one of the most important things is to have strong local and international collaborations, and another is to have protected time to think about what you are going to do and how you're going to do it. And I'm very grateful at the moment to be on a visiting fellowship at King's that's been sponsored by the Cambridge Africa program and by King's College. And I hope that I'm just the first of many African scientists who will have this wonderful opportunity, and I know that that's the plan. And I want to say also that for people in Cambridge, I'm sure that being in Cambridge is the last thing you want to do if you need protected time. And to mention that in our program, we also have opportunities for people to be visiting in Uganda. And so this tranquil picture is to invite you to come and be a visiting scientist in Uganda, spend some time thinking about work that you might like to do with African colleagues and sharing a bit of your expertise at the same time. So finally, I want to say thank you, big thank you to Cambridge Africa, especially David, Ashley, and the others who've already participated so much in what we're doing, and to Pauline and the team who helped to organize everything. And to the colleagues in Uganda who support and run the program, the funders, especially the Wellcome Trust, and a special thank you to Jimmy, who put a lot of work into when he was at the trust. Also, even before that, when he was my director in Uganda, into supporting capacity building and training for African scientists.
Yeah, are there any questions? And I'll try and spot them this time. I don't want to miss any. Yeah, there's one at the back there.
Thank you, Alison, for the presentation. I remember the slide where you showed that hookworm infection helped reduce the allergic diseases in children. Does the study advise that we should allow women to we shouldn't treat hookworm infection in women? Is that the advice?
Well, that, of course, you know, that's an important question. There's a policy currently to sort of treat women during pregnancy with hookworm pretty sort of, you know, whatever their state is. And I think it's that as a policy, it's perhaps gone too far, because it's probably important where anemia is a big problem and where hookworm infection intensity is quite high, which is not the case, for example, in African cities. where allergic disease is probably more of a problem. So, perhaps there should be some reconsideration of whether this is a good blanket policy. But on the other hand, I think at the moment, perhaps it's still more in the slightly more basic area of interest that, trying to understand why hookworm is protective and how it does it, and at that level, and that may in the longer term help with understanding interventions that wouldn't actually involve having to have a pathogen infecting you in order to avoid allergic outcomes.
Are there any other questions that I'm missing? Excellent. Well, can we all thank Alison very much for a really interesting talk?